Hey guys, tonight we're standing beneath a sky so deep and blue it almost feels like silk stretched across the heavens. The year is 1220 and the air over Samarkand glows with the scent of spice, smoke and empire. This is the heart of Transoxiana, the pride of the Khwarazmian Empire, the crossroads of the known world. And tonight, you're right in the middle of it. If you listen closely, you can hear everything at once. The ring of blacksmiths hammering bronze in the bazaar, the laughter of merchants haggling over bolts of Chinese silk, the distant call of the muezzin rising above the turquoise domes. The city pulses like a living jewel, a place where desert caravans meet rivers of knowledge. Astronomers, poets, calligraphers and mathematicians walk the same streets, where camels groan under the weight of gold and jade. You stroll down the Registan, the great square, as sunlight dances across mosaics of blue and white tile. The madrasas shimmer like waves of colour, and the smell of baked bread, cardamom and rosewater drifts through the air. Students debate the works of Aristotle in Persian and Arabic. Scholars trace star maps under the same sky the Mongols are now learning to ride beneath, though no one here imagines what's coming from beyond that horizon. To the west, merchants from Baghdad and Cairo exchange coins stamped with the crescent of the Khwarazm Shah. To the east, caravans from China unload bolts of silk and lacquered armour. Samarkand is more than a city, it's a promise that culture can flourish even at the edge of empires. But beauty, as history keeps teaching us, is often a prelude to ruin. You pass through the bazaar, where rumours travel faster than silk caravans. Traders whisper of a new power rising in the east, wild riders from the steppes who move like wind and kill like fire. They call him Genghis Khan, one says quietly. He conquered all Mongolia in a single lifetime. Now he looks west, another laughs. Bah! The steppes breed only wind and dust. Let them chase goats. We have walls. Those walls, massive sun-baked fortifications of mud, brick and stone, gleam proudly in the desert light. They've stood for centuries defending the city from every invader who dared to dream of conquest. On the battlements, soldiers in bright silk tunics laugh and play dice, certain that no enemy can cross the great Sirdaria River and live. At the city's heart, in the royal citadel, Sultan Muhammad II of Khwarazm holds court. His empire stretches from the Caspian Sea to the Indus, from the Aral to the Persian Gulf, one of the largest realms in the world. His courtiers bow low as he passes, his crown glittering with rubies and pearls. His word is law, his pride unshakable. Yet, in the quiet corners of the city, not everyone feels secure. A few of the older scholars remember the stories of the steppe. They've read the old chronicles of Temujin, the son of a tribal outcast who forged a nation of horsemen and swore to rule all under heaven. When a storm rises in the east, one murmurs, it is wise to watch the horizon. But the Sultan's advisors mock such warnings. The Mongols, they say, a rabble of herdsmen. They have no cities, no walls, no scholars. Their Khan is a barbarian in furs, and yet far beyond the horizon the ground is already trembling. Out on the endless steppe, 1,000 miles away, a vast army is moving. Not aimlessly, not chaotically, but with purpose. Their horses eat up the miles, their banners whip like fire in the wind. They are the children of the wolf and the hawk, trained from birth to ride, shoot and obey. They call their leader Genghis Khan, universal ruler. He has united every tribe under one law, one dream, to bring the world to heel. But here in Samarkand, none of that feels real yet. Night falls like velvet over the city. The domes shimmer under torchlight, and the great observatory atop the citadel glows like a lantern of knowledge. Astronomers chart the heavens, drawing lines between constellations that seem fixed forever. Lovers walk through gardens where fountains murmur, unaware that within months those same fountains will run red. At a poet's gathering, verses are recited about paradise, about gardens of eternal shade and rivers of milk and honey. Someone raises a cup of wine and toasts the Sultan's reign. May our empire last forever, he says. The crowd laughs, the musicians play, the night grows warm. But far to the east, the same stars gleam above another camp. A sea of felt tents spread across the steppes. Fires flicker like constellations on the ground. Around them, riders sharpen blades by starlight. A tall man in wolf fur stands silent, his eyes fixed westward. His scouts have returned from the borders with terrible news. His merchants, his envoys, his people, murdered by the Khwarazm governor of Otrar. The man says nothing at first. Then, in a low, even voice, he speaks. "If they kill my sons of trade," he says, "I will kill their sons of empire." His generals bow their heads. The oath is sworn. Back in Samarkand, the city sleeps, dreaming of wealth, of poetry, of peace. The moonlight spills over domes of turquoise and towers of marble. The river hums softly through the orchards. But somewhere beyond the desert, a million hooves are already beginning to move, and by the time that dust reaches these walls, paradise will have learned the taste of fire. Morning breaks over Khwarazm, and sunlight spills like molten gold across the rooftops of Samarkand. From the towers of the royal citadel, banners flutter in the wind, green silk embroidered with verses from the Quran, gold thread shimmering like lightning. Below, the streets are alive again, markets bursting with traders, the scent of horses and spice thick in the air. The empire looks eternal, but as you walk through its splendour, you can feel something else beneath the surface. Arrogance, tension, and the first cracks in the stone. At the heart of this vast domain sits Sultan Muhammad II, King of Kings, Master of the East and West. At least that's how he likes to be addressed. His empire stretches from the mountains of Afghanistan to the shores of the Caspian Sea, a mosaic of lands stitched together by conquest and pride. He rules from a marble throne in the citadel, surrounded by gold mosaics and perfumed courtiers. Behind him, carved into the wall, are verses declaring that God himself has blessed his reign. You stand among the crowd in his audience hall. The floor gleams like water, the air heavy with incense. Ambassadors bow low, their gifts piled high, silks from China, jewels from India, ivory from Africa. The Sultan receives them all with the detached boredom of a man who believes the world already belongs to him. But beneath that gold and perfume, the empire trembles. The Khwarazmian realm is rich, yes, but unstable. Its borders are vast and hard to defend. Its governors are ambitious, its soldiers greedy, and its people exhausted by taxes and war. The Sultan trusts no one, not his generals, not his viziers, not even his family. His empire is a mirror polished so bright it hides the cracks beneath. He inherited his throne from his mother, the formidable Turkan Khatun, a woman of Turkish blood whose will was as sharp as any sword. For years she ruled beside him, or rather, above him, her network of spies and officials reaching into every corner of the state. She favours her own kin, and resents her son's independence. Their rivalry divides the court, half bow to the Sultan, half whisper to the Queen Mother, and in those whispers the empire's foundation weakens. You can feel the tension every time their names are spoken together. At night, the palace glows with lamps, but behind the silk curtains, voices rise in argument. The empire must be ruled by strength, the Sultan shouts. By wisdom, his mother replies, and wisdom listens. He does not listen. To the east, the Mongol Empire rises like a thundercloud. Genghis Khan has unified the steppes, crushed the Jin dynasty, and now his horsemen ride toward the edges of Khwarazmian lands. Traders bring news of their speed, their cruelty, their strange discipline. One merchant claims the Mongols can cross 1,000 miles of desert without rest. Another swears he saw them shoot birds from the sky at full gallop. The Sultan laughs. Stories, he says, goat herders' tales. His viziers urge caution. My lord, one says, this Khan of the East is not a mere raider. He seeks alliance, or war. The Sultan's pride curls like smoke. Let him seek what he likes. I am the master of Asia, not some shepherd with a bow. And yet, as you walk through the city, you can feel the rumours spreading like wind through dry reeds. The caravan masters grow uneasy. The traders glance east with worry. The soldiers drink too much. Samarkand scholars, however, remain oblivious. In the libraries, men in white robes trace the movements of the stars, confident that mathematics and God are both on their side. The heavens move by harmony, one tells you with a smile. So too does empire. You don't have the heart to tell him what's coming. Beyond the walls, in the deserts and mountains, cracks widen. Governors grow corrupt, skimming taxes and hoarding power. In the city of Otrar, the Sultan's appointed governor, Inalchuk, has grown infamous for his greed and cruelty. He would sell his own mother, the merchants joke, if the buyer paid in silver. He watches the trade caravans from the east with hungry eyes, calculating profit instead of peace. And then, one winter morning, a caravan appears. Hundreds of Mongol merchants bearing silks, furs and gold under banners of peace. They come not as conquerors, but as traders, bearing letters sealed with the mark of Genghis Khan himself. The letter is courteous, almost humble. It offers alliance and friendship, a bridge between East and West. "Let there be peace between us," it reads, "and let our merchants travel safely." But when the letter reaches the Sultan, pride blinds him. He reads it once, twice, then tosses it aside. "A barbarian dares to call me brother," he sneers. "Does the sun bow to the dust?" The court laughs, except for one old vizier, who bows low and murmurs, "My lord, beware of scorning a wolf who smiles." The Sultan ignores him. In Otrar, the Mongol merchants are detained, accused of spying. Inalchuk seizes their goods, tortures them, and sends word to the Sultan, "Shall I kill them?" The Sultan, still fuming at the Khan's presumption, sends a single word in reply, "Yes." When the last of the Mongol envoys dies under Otrar's walls, their bodies are dumped into the desert like refuse. The sand covers their faces, the wind carries their story east. Back in Samarkand, the Sultan feasts in his palace. Music fills the air. The poets recite verses of glory, the courtiers cheer, and no one dares mention the small matter of dead traders. But in a distant camp beyond the mountains, under the same moon, a man in wolf fur stands silent as he listens to the report. He doesn't speak for a long time. Then he says softly, "I sent them in peace." They answered with blood. He lifts his gaze toward the west, where the stars hang like spears over the horizon. "Let them learn," he says, "what it means to betray the steppe." That night his generals ride to summon the Tumans, 10,000 riders apiece. The horses neigh, the drums thunder, and the fires of vengeance begin to glow on the horizon. And in Samarkand, the Sultan still sleeps beneath his jewelled dome, dreaming of empire, unaware that the storm has already been born. The winter of 1218 settles over the Silk Road like a frozen shroud. The winds that blow from the east carry a strange rumour, whispers of horsemen who move like shadows, whose arrows blot out the sun, whose Khan commands men as if born from the sky itself. But in Samarkand, those are only campfire tales. The great Khwarazmian Empire still believes the world turns beneath its crescent banners. You stand in the great hall of Sultan Muhammad II, where the marble floor reflects torchlight like still water. Courtiers in silk robes kneel in orderly rows. Musicians pluck strings softly, and at the centre of it all, the Sultan reclines on his throne, surrounded by gold, arrogance, and 100 trembling servants. The doors open. Into the hall step 3 men, dusty from the road, their cloaks lined with wolf fur, their eyes sharp as obsidian. They bow deeply but not submissively. Their leader, an older man with a braided beard, speaks first. "From Genghis Khan, lord of the Mongols," he says in careful Persian, "to the mighty Sultan Muhammad, ruler of the West, our master sends greetings of peace," the courtiers murmur. "Peace," one scoffs. "From barbarians?" The envoy continues, unshaken. "The Khan desires friendship. He seeks alliance and trade between our empires, silk for silver, grain for horses, peace for prosperity." He presents a scroll wrapped in embroidered leather, its seal pressed with a falcon in flight. The Sultan accepts it with a smirk. He breaks the seal and begins to read aloud. "I am the ruler of the lands of the rising sun. You are the ruler of the lands of the setting sun. Let there be peace between us, so that merchants may travel safely between our realms." It's a humble message, respectful, almost brotherly. But to a man like Muhammad, humility sounds like insolence. He throws back his head and laughs. He dares call himself my equal, a shepherd from the steppe. A few courtiers join in the laughter, eager to please, Only the vizier, old and quiet, shakes his head. "My lord," he says softly, "perhaps the Khan's friendship would be wiser than his wrath." But pride has no ears. The Sultan waves him away. "Tell your master," he says coldly, "that I am no man's brother. If he seeks peace, he will send tribute, not trade." The envoys exchange glances, not fear, not anger, just a silent understanding that their message has fallen on deaf ears. The leader bows. "Then may God judge between our masters." They turn to leave, but before they reach the doors, the Sultan calls after them. "Tell your Khan," he says, voice sharp as steel, "that the world already belongs to me." Outside, the winter wind howls. The envoys mount their horses and ride east. Snow begins to fall, swirling in ghostly spirals. Behind them, the domes of Samarkand fade into grey. Ahead, the steppe stretches endless and silent. When they reach Otrar, the border city that guards the empire's eastern edge, they rest for the night. The city's governor, Inalchuk, known for his greed, welcomes them with false smiles. "Merchants of the Khan," he says smoothly, "you carry letters of peace? How admirable!" But his eyes linger on their goods. Bolts of silk, carved jade, gold ingots stamped with Mongol runes. By morning, the gates of Otrar close. The envoys are seized. Their guards are executed. Their treasures are confiscated in the name of the Sultan. The Mongols protest. "We are guests," they cry. "We came under truce." Inalchuk smiles, then die as honoured guests. The prisoners are tortured, their beards torn out, their tongues cut. When news of the massacre reaches Samarkand, the Sultan shrugs. "Fools," he says, "if the Mongols want vengeance, they can come and get it." He doesn't understand that they will. Months later, 3 more emissaries arrive from the east. Not merchants this time, but warriors bearing a message of fury. They stand in the Sultan's court, heads unbowed. "You have murdered our people," their leader declares. "Our Khan demands justice. Hand over the governor of Otrar and peace will remain." The court falls silent. For a brief moment, even the Sultan seems uncertain. But pride burns hotter than wisdom. "I will not be ordered by barbarians," he snaps. "If the Khan wants him, let him take him from my cold hands." And in an act that will echo through centuries, the Sultan orders the execution of one envoy and the beheading of another. The third is sent back alive, his beard burned off, his head shaved, as an insult. He rides east, silent and broken, across deserts and rivers, through wind and frost, until at last he reaches the camp of Genghis Khan. The Khan listens without speaking, his eyes narrow. When the envoy finishes, Genghis removes his fur cloak and lays it on the ground. "I have no words," he says, "only vengeance." He turns to his generals. "Summon the Tumans, 10,000 for every hair on their heads. We will show the world that even the sun cannot rise without my command." The drums begin to thunder across the plains. Fires spark across the horizon. Campfires of an army so vast it seems to consume the earth. Messengers ride out in every direction. Blacksmiths forge arrowheads by the million. Horses are shod, yurts packed, weapons blessed. From the frozen rivers of Mongolia to the burning sands of Transoxiana, the greatest army the world has ever seen begins to move. In the quiet before dawn, Genghis stands alone on a hill looking west. His face is expressionless, but his words fall like stone. "They have chosen the sword." Then the sword will answer. Behind him the steppe erupts in the sound of hooves, an ocean of fury rising to drown an empire. And far away, Samarkand still gleams under its turquoise domes, oblivious, unprepared, and doomed. The year is 1219, and the city of Otrar lies like a glittering scab between two worlds, the border fortress of the Khwarazmian Empire, guarding the path between civilization and the vast, whispering emptiness of the steppe. On the horizon, the desert stretches endless and golden, and somewhere beyond that sea of sand, vengeance is gathering. You stand on the city walls, staring east. The air feels strange, heavy, expectant, like the moment before a storm. The guards joke about Mongols around the fire, their laughter too loud. The governor, Inalchuk, known as the Lion of Otrar, paces the battlements in his jewelled armour, his pride shining brighter than his steel. He's still drunk on the spoils he stole from Genghis Khan's merchants, crates of silk, furs, jade and gold now locked in his treasury. He doesn't see that the gold is cursed. Inside the palace, his scribes tally new taxes, his guards drink wine, and his spies whisper that the Sultan praises his loyalty. But at night, even Inalchuk hears the wind howling across the steppes, a long, low sound that feels like breathing. And then one morning the horizon moves. At first it looks like a sandstorm, a faint brown blur against the sunrise, but then the earth begins to shake. Dust columns twist upward like pillars. The guards squint, blink, and then they see it. Horses, tens of thousands of them. The Mongol army appears not like an army at all, but like an element of nature. The riders move in silence, their banners streaming black and red, their formation so precise it feels impossible. Each warrior wears lamella armour of rawhide and iron, their bows short and deadly, their faces hidden behind leather masks, and at their centre, under a wolf fur standard, rides the man himself, Genghis Khan, the storm made flesh. Inalchuk freezes. His pride flickers into fear. He orders the gates shut, the walls manned, the archers ready. From the city's towers, horns blare. The people scatter into their homes. The Mongols stop just out of arrow range. They make no sound, no movement, just sit their horses, watching. The air between the armies feels like a held breath. Then, with a single signal, the Mongol drums begin. Boom, boom, boom. The sound rolls across the desert like thunder. The siege of Otrar has begun. For weeks the Mongols encircle the city, cutting off water and trade. Their engineers build siege engines, towers and rams with terrifying speed. They launch flaming arrows by the thousands, blackening the sky. Inside, panic grows. The people whisper of divine punishment, of the wrath of the East. Inalchuk shouts down the fear, declaring that his walls are unbreakable, his soldiers loyal. "We are the gate of the empire," he roars. "We will not fall." But Genghis Khan does not attack recklessly. He waits, he studies, he tests the defences with probing strikes, learning every weakness. He sends envoys demanding surrender, not as mercy, but as ritual. Each time, Inalchuk refuses. Each refusal seals his fate deeper in blood. When the Mongols finally strike in full, the desert itself seems to move. Siege towers roll forward, catapults thunder, arrows rain like locusts. The defenders pour boiling oil and stones from the ramparts. The Mongols fall, rise again, advance. They work in silence, coordinated, tireless, terrifying. At night, they play psychological games, lighting fires that flicker across the sands, moving them again and again to make their numbers seem infinite. They scream into the darkness, banging drums, blowing horns carved from human bones. Sleep becomes impossible for the defenders. Hunger and fear gnaw at them faster than the enemy's blades. Weeks turn into months, winter comes, the city starves, the wells run dry. Inalchuk grows paranoid, executing his officers for imagined betrayal. His men begin to desert, scaling the walls under moonlight to flee. Then, one night, a handful of those deserters slip into the Mongol camp offering a deal. "Spare us," they say, "and we will open the gates." Genghis Khan listens in silence, his eyes cold as stone. He nods once. At dawn, the gates of Otrar swing open. The Mongols flood in like a tide of iron. The defenders fight desperately in the streets, but the city is already lost. The Mongols set fire to the granaries and mosques. Arrows whistle through the smoke. Screams echo between burning walls. Inalchuk retreats to the citadel, his last stronghold. He and a few hundred loyal men hold out for 5 days, fighting room to room, floor to floor, until finally the last door falls. The Mongols drag him out alive. They do not kill him quickly. The Khan has decreed that this man's punishment must fit his arrogance. Bound and gagged, Inalchuk is brought before the Mongol generals. They pour molten silver into his mouth, the price of greed, paid in fire. When the smoke clears, Otrar is gone, not conquered, erased. Its people are slaughtered or enslaved, its buildings razed, its name carved into the Mongols' memory as a warning. Far away in Samarkand, the Sultan hears the news. A minor loss, he says stiffly. The Mongols will tire and turn back. But his generals exchange fearful glances. They know the truth. This was not a battle. It was a message. And in the east, the steppe thunder rolls again. The vengeance of Genghis Khan is only beginning. The next city to face the storm will not be a border fortress. It will be a jewel, the shining heart of the empire itself. The winds of the steppe are cold and cruel that spring. They blow across a land where the sky seems endless, and the earth hums with the sound of horses. Beneath that sky, the man who will avenge the massacre of Otrar stands silent in the centre of his camp. Genghis Khan, the wolf-born ruler of a people who have never known walls. His fur cloak flaps in the wind, his eyes are fixed on the horizon where the sun bleeds red. Around him, tens of thousands of tents stretch to the edge of sight. Smoke from 100 fires curls upward into the pale air. The Mongol host, the mightiest ever assembled, is gathering. Warriors polish their bows, test their saddles, and whisper prayers to Tengri, the eternal blue sky. The women forge arrowheads, mend armour, and tend to the horses. Even the children know something vast is coming. You walk among the tents, feeling the hum of power, quiet, disciplined, alive. No army in history moves like this. Each rider carries his own food, weapons, and spare horses. Each warrior can ride 100 miles a day, fight without orders, survive without supplies. They do not wait for orders shouted from towers. They move like a single organism, obeying the pulse of their Khan's will. And that will is fixed on one thing only: vengeance. Inside his command tent, Genghis Khan sits cross-legged before a map drawn in ashen hide. His generals kneel around him: Jai, the arrow, master of pursuit; Subutai, the thunderbolt, the greatest strategist the steppes will ever know; and Yoki, his eldest son, tall and grim. The Khan speaks little. When he does, his voice is calm, even gentle. "They murdered my people under the banner of peace," he says. "They mocked my messengers. They thought distance would protect them." He pauses, looking from one general to the next. "We will show them that the steppe has no distance." He places a black stone on the map where Otrar once stood. "This," he says, "is the beginning." Then he moves the stone westward, placing it on Samarkand. "And this," he murmurs, "is the end." Outside, the horses snort and stamp. At sunset, a messenger arrives from the ruins of Otrar, bearing a scrap of silk scorched and blood-stained, part of a merchant's banner. The Khan takes it in his hands and stares for a long time. Then he ties it to his spear. "This will lead us west," he says. "The road of vengeance is long, but we will ride it to its end." That night, the Mongol camp glows with torchlight. Priests chant to the eternal sky, offering milk and mare's blood to the spirits of the slain. The soldiers kneel in silence, their faces lit by fire. The Khan steps forward, raising his sword toward the heavens. The flames reflect in his eyes. "If heaven wills it," he says, "the rivers of Khwarazm will run red. Let every wall fall, every city burn, every proud man bow." The army answers with one sound, a deep wordless roar that shakes the plains. When morning comes, the Mongols move. They march westward in 4 great columns, an ocean of riders and carts, engineers and slaves, siege engines and banners. Scouts ride ahead, invisible as ghosts, mapping every valley and well. Behind them, the sky fills with dust. Even the animals of the steppe flee before them. The Khwarazmian frontier cities fall one by one: Banakat, Tashkent, Jand. Their garrisons surrender or are annihilated. The Mongols leave no ambiguity. Those who resist die, those who submit live. The word spreads faster than their horses. The Mongols are coming. In Bukhara, a city famed for its mosques and scholars, the people debate what to do. Some argue for surrender. Others, trusting in God and walls, prepare to fight. But faith cannot stop the wind. When Genghis Khan reaches Bukhara, he finds its gates open, its army defeated, its people trembling. He rides through the streets on a small grey horse, the citizens watching in terrified silence. He enters the great mosque, dismounts, and climbs the pulpit. "This is God's punishment," he declares, his voice echoing through the vast hall. If you had not committed great sins, he would not have sent a punishment like me upon you. Then he orders the city looted but not destroyed, a mercy by Mongol standards. The gold and silk are loaded onto carts. The artisans and scholars are taken east. The rest are left to watch the horizon burn. When the Khan departs, he leaves behind a message carved into the city gate. The word of the Khan is iron. Back in his camp, the generals gather once more. Subutai unfolds a new map marking the next target. Samarkand, the jewel of Transoxiana, the heart of the Khwarazmian Empire. The Shah will defend it with his full strength, says Jebi. Then we will take his strength from him, the Khan replies. He rises and walks outside where the sun is setting over the desert, painting the sky blood red. We will break his walls, he says quietly, and his pride will break with them. His horse waits, stamping impatiently. The Khan mounts, raises his arm, and the horns sound. Behind him 200,000 horsemen move as one, their hooves drumming like thunder. The ground trembles, the air fills with dust, and the steppe begins to sing its ancient song of conquest. The vengeance of Genghis Khan is no longer a promise, it is a storm, and its next lightning strike will fall upon Samarkand. The wind over Central Asia carries the smell of dust and blood. Spring has come to the steppes, and with it, the storm of Genghis Khan's vengeance. The great Mongol host stretches across the horizon like a moving shadow, a living sea of hooves, banners, and steel. Each morning the sun rises behind their backs, turning their ranks into silhouettes of death. Each night their campfires spread across the plains like constellations fallen to earth. You ride with them, and the rhythm of their movement feels otherworldly, constant, perfect, inhuman. A Mongol army doesn't march in columns like the soldiers of the West. It ripples like wind through grass. Every man is both warrior and messenger, archer and scout. Each carries his own bow, quiver, axe, and knife. Each tends 2 or 3 horses so none tire. When a mount falters, the rider cuts its throat, drinks its warm blood, and rides another. The steppe taught them endurance before the empire taught them conquest. Their banners, long tails of black horsehair, flap in the cold air, marking divisions called tumens, 10,000 riders apiece, trained to obey without hesitation. Drums boom to signal movement. Whistles guide the ranks. No shouts, no chaos, no wasted motion. From afar it looks almost graceful, a tide advancing toward annihilation. Ahead of the main force ride the vanguards under Yebei and Subutai, the twin blades of the Khan. They move like spirits, striking at outposts, capturing scouts, mapping every road and well. Behind them, engineers drag siege equipment dismantled into pieces, catapults, mangonels, battering rams, the tools of cities' ruin. Oxen pull them through sand and snow, artisans sharpen blades by firelight, and at the heart of it all rides Genghis Khan, calm, unhurried, wrapped in furs of grey wolf and sable. His eyes never rest. Every hill, every river crossing, every ruined fortress becomes a calculation. He's not merely avenging an insult, he's dissecting a world that dared to mock him. They cross the Syr-Darya river under moonlight. The water, swollen with spring melt, bites at the horses' legs. The men chant prayers to Tengri, the eternal sky. The Khan rides in the centre of the crossing, his presence alone enough to steady their courage. When they reach the far bank, he dismounts, kneels, and offers a libation of milk to the earth. "We have crossed the line," he says quietly. "There is no going back." The Khwarazmian outposts crumble before them. City after city falls, some without a fight, others with defiance that only fuels Mongol cruelty. Bukhara, once a beacon of Islamic learning, lies smouldering behind them. The mosques are stripped of gold, the scholars scattered or slain. But the Khan does not linger. His goal is larger than revenge. He wants to break the illusion of walls, to prove that no fortress, no army, no king can stand against the discipline of the steppes. News of his advance spreads like a plague. Caravans vanish. Refugees flood the roads westward. In every marketplace of Transoxiana, the same stories circulate. Tales of Mongols who kill without pity, who spare only the useful, who burn entire cities as offerings to their god of sky. The Sultan's subjects tremble, but the Sultan himself scoffs. Let them come, he tells his court. The walls of Samarkand are taller than their courage. He orders his commanders to assemble the empire's armies, Turks, Persians, Arabs, and mercenaries from the Caucasus. They number nearly 100,000, more, he believes, than enough. But numbers are not discipline, and loyalty is not fear. Meanwhile, the Mongols move faster than rumour. They split their forces, dividing the world like a map in motion. Yochi, the Khan's eldest son, rides north toward Urgench to cut off the Khwarazmian supply lines. Ogadei and Chagatai, his other sons, swing south through the desert to trap any fleeing armies. Jeb and Subutai move west, feigning retreat to lure the Sultan's generals into ambushes. It's not war, it's orchestration. In one valley near the Amudarya, a Khwarazmian garrison charges what they believe to be a small Mongol scouting force. The Mongols flee, firing backward from horseback, their arrows hissing through the air. The pursuers chase them for miles, straight into an encirclement. Horns sound from every direction. The sand explodes with riders. By the time the trap closes, 10,000 lie dead. From the top of a ridge, Genghis Khan watches through narrowed eyes. When the dust clears, he says, "Let them learn how the wind kills." By summer, his armies reach the outskirts of Samarkand, the fabled heart of the Khwarazmian world. They camp along the Zerafshan River, their tents multiplying each night until the horizon itself seems woven with black felt. From the city's towers, the defenders stare in disbelief. No one has ever seen an army so vast, so ordered, so silent. The Khan rides forward to survey the city, its golden domes, its shining walls, its gardens of pomegranate and cypress. He studies it the way a falcon studies prey. "It is beautiful," he murmurs to Subutai. "It will burn beautifully." Within Samarkand, panic grows. Refugees from Bukhara crowd the markets, bringing tales of slaughter. The Sultan's generals bicker over who will command. His mother, Turkan Khatun, urges him to stay and fight. His astrologers warn that the stars are unfavourable. The Sultan, torn between pride and fear, does what weak kings always do. He hesitates, and the Mongols do not wait for hesitation. As dusk falls, Genghis Khan calls his army together. He raises his sword toward the west, where the last light of day glows red against the domes of Samarkand. "We ride," he says simply. "We ride for vengeance, for justice, and for the end of arrogance." The drums begin their deep, measured pulse. Horns answer from across the plain. Tens of thousands of riders lower their lances, tighten their saddles, and whisper blessings to their horses. The horizon trembles. When the order comes, the Mongol horde moves, a black wave under a crimson sky. The earth shudders, the wind howls, and the world's most perfect city braces itself for its most terrible dawn. The city of Bukhara rises from the desert like a dream of paradise. Domes of turquoise glazed with light, minarets reaching toward heaven, fountains whispering through gardens of rose and jasmine. It is the holiest city in all Transoxiana, the crown of Islamic scholarship, the city of imams and poets, saints and astronomers. For 5 centuries, Bukhara has been a lantern of learning along the Silk Road, and now that lantern flickers beneath the shadow of the Mongol horde. You stand upon the city walls, squinting eastward into the dawn. At first, it seems like a mirage, the shimmer of heat, the blur of dust. Then the sound comes, low and rolling, a pulse that rises from the earth, the drumming of hooves. The sentries cry out, the horizon darkens, and then they appear, endless ranks of horsemen, their armour glinting, their banners trailing black hair in the wind. The people of Bukhara rush into the streets. Merchants abandon their stalls, mothers clutch their children, and muezzins climb the minarets to call for prayer. Inside the mosques, the air fills with trembling voices. Allah, protect us from the punishment of the East. The governor of Bukhara, a man more scholar than soldier, rallies his garrison of 10,000 men. He orders the gates barred, the bridges cut, and the catapults manned. "We have walls," he says, "and walls do not fear horsemen." Outside those walls, Genghis Khan dismounts. His grey horse snorts clouds into the cold morning air. The Khan studies the city before him, the domes gleaming like jewels, the minarets casting long shadows. "A beautiful place," he murmurs. "It will make a fine pasture." His generals await orders, but Genghis does not rush. He rides slowly along the perimeter, noting every gate, every tower, every weakness. Then he speaks a single word: encircle. The Mongols move instantly. Within hours, the city is surrounded, every road, every riverbank, every path sealed. Siege engines roll into place, built in the open desert by engineers brought from China. Slaves drag great bundles of reeds and timber to fill the moat. The air thickens with the smell of sweat and resin. When the first boulders strike the walls, the sound is like thunder. The defenders answer with arrows and boiling oil, shouting praises to God. For 3 days the siege rages, fire and stone flying through the air. Then, on the 4th night, the sound changes. From within the walls comes shouting, confusion, betrayal. The city's garrison, made up of foreign mercenaries, has turned. Their leader, seeing the hopelessness of the fight, opens one of the gates in secret. At dawn, the Mongols pour through. The defenders break almost instantly. The streets become rivers of panic. The Mongols advance with terrifying precision, not wild slaughter, but methodical extermination. They cut down resistance, drive the population into the central square, and set fire to the granaries. Genghis Khan rides into the city surrounded by his guard. He passes through the streets in silence, his horse's hooves echoing over the stones. The people bow, trembling, expecting death. But the Khan does not kill them. Not yet. He rides straight to the Friday Mosque, the grandest building in the city, its dome glittering with gold mosaic. He dismounts at the entrance, removes his boots, and steps onto the sacred carpet. The imams shrink back, unsure whether to pray or run. He ascends the pulpit where sermons of mercy and wisdom are usually given. His voice fills the vast space, calm and cold. "If you had not committed great sins," he says, "God would not have sent a punishment like me upon you." Silence falls. His words are not shouted, they are simply true. Then, without another word, he leaves the mosque and mounts his horse again. As he rides through the city, his soldiers begin to plunder, not with reckless cruelty but organised efficiency. The gold from the mosques, the silver from the palaces, the silks from the merchants' stalls, all are collected, catalogued and carted away. The artisans and scholars are spared, rounded up and sent east to work for the Mongols. Everyone else is left to face the sword. By nightfall the city burns. The domes that once caught the sunrise now glow red with flame. The call to prayer is drowned out by the crack of collapsing roofs. The smell of smoke and blood hangs heavy. In the central square, Genghis sits by the fountain, his generals gathered around him. They report the spoils, the prisoners, the dead. He listens, nodding occasionally. When one officer asks what to do with the surviving soldiers, the Khan gestures toward the burning walls. "Send them to build fires," he says. "Let them see what their faith has earned them." He does not gloat, does not rage, does not revel in victory. His expression is as unreadable as stone. For him, this is not cruelty. It is law. The punishment for betrayal, for arrogance, for the murder of his envoys. The next morning he orders the surviving artisans to rebuild the bridges and roads. "We will need them," he says. "Samarkand awaits." Before leaving, he commands that the city be stripped bare, its wealth taken, its walls torn down, its people scattered. When he rides away, Bukhara is no longer a city. It is a grave. Behind him the smoke rises into the sky, dark and twisting, forming shapes like letters, in a language only the gods can read. The people who survive will later tell their children that day was the judgment of heaven, when pride met the wind and the wind devoured it. And ahead, just 2 days' ride away, the domes of Samarkand shimmer on the horizon. The jewel of Transoxiana is next. Spring sunlight pours across Samarkand, making its domes blaze like pieces of the sky brought down to earth. The bazaars overflow with traders shouting prices, camels snorting, coins clinking. From the orchards beyond the city walls comes the smell of apricot blossom and dust. On the surface, everything seems alive, but beneath that glittering calm, fear coils like smoke. You walk through the crowded market and you can feel it in every hurried voice. Refugees from Bukhara sit by the gates, their clothes torn, their faces hollow. "The Mongols are coming," they whisper. "They burned Bukhara to the ground." The great Khan himself entered their mosque. Others shake their heads in disbelief. Impossible. Bukhara's walls were stronger than ours. The merchants are packing their wares, loading carts with silk and gold. Soldiers march through the streets, but even their armour sounds nervous. The Khwarazmian Empire, once the pride of Central Asia, now trembles before a name spoken like a curse: Genghis Khan. In the royal citadel, Sultan Muhammad II paces like a man caged inside his own vanity. He has summoned his generals, his viziers, his astrologers, his mother. Maps lie scattered on the marble floor. Messengers rush in with reports that grow worse by the hour. Bukhara has fallen. The Mongols have crossed the Zarafshan River. The smoke of burning villages can already be seen from the eastern watchtowers. The Sultan slams his fist against the table. "How can they move so fast?" he demands. "Bukhara was supposed to hold them for months." His generals exchange uneasy looks. None dare say what they all know, that his empire's strength is illusion. His armies are vast but fractured, made up of Persian infantry, Turkish horsemen, mercenaries from distant lands, and slaves promised freedom for loyalty. They speak different tongues, fight with different customs, and share only one thing in common: fear. "My lord," says one brave commander, "we must meet them in the open field before they reach the city. If we wait behind walls, we will be trapped." The Sultan rounds on him, eyes blazing. "You question my strategy?" The man bows quickly. "No, Majesty. Only the will of heaven." The Sultan turns away, muttering. He's not a coward, not yet, but pride has blinded him more than fear. He still believes his empire's walls can stop the wind. Outside, the citizens prepare for siege. The city gates, 4 of them, each named for a direction and a star, are reinforced with iron and cedar. The walls are repainted with symbols of divine protection. The call to prayer echoes from 100 minarets, a trembling chorus that rises into the empty sky. At night, you climb to the top of the walls. The horizon glows faintly red. Some say it's the sunset. Others whisper it's the reflection of burning towns. The stars come out sharp and cold. The wind smells faintly of smoke and something else, a scent like iron and leather. The soldiers mutter about omens. A hawk drops dead mid-flight over the citadel. The river runs muddy. The astrologers warn that Mars, the planet of war, stands in a cursed house. But the Sultan's mother, Turkan Khatun, only tightens her veil and says, "The Mongols bleed like any men. Let them come." Still, unease grows. 2 days later, the first riders appear. They come not in force, but in silence. A handful of Mongol scouts on small, wiry horses. They do not attack. They circle the city, mapping every wall, every gate. Arrows from the defenders chase them away, but they vanish like smoke. The next morning they return, twice as many. The next, hundreds. Soon the hills around Samarkand shimmer with dust. The earth trembles. And then, one morning, the people wake to find the horizon black with motion. The Mongol army has arrived. Their banners flap like storm clouds, black, red, and white. Siege engines creak into place. Across the fields, engineers begin building earthworks, their movements swift and practiced. Behind them, endless lines of horsemen stretch to the horizon, silent as death. The city's garrison prepares for battle, nearly 110,000 men by the Sultan's count, though many are mercenaries with more loyalty to coin than crown. They man the walls, string their bows, and whisper prayers. The Sultan rides among them, trying to appear fearless, but his eyes betray exhaustion. At sunset, the Mongols send a messenger, a single rider under a white flag. He halts just within shouting distance of the gate and raises a scroll. From Genghis Khan, ruler of the world beneath the eternal blue sky, he calls, to the Sultan of Khwarazm, breaker of oaths and murderer of envoys. We came seeking peace. You answered with blood. Now we offer one last mercy. Surrender and live as servants of the Khan. Resist, and all who dwell here will die. The rider waits. No answer comes, An arrow whistles from the wall, striking him through the chest. He falls without a sound. The Mongols do not reply that night. They simply wait. Inside the city, panic ripples. The Sultan's commanders argue in whispers. Some urge surrender, others vow to fight to the last. The Sultan retreats to his palace, silent. He orders wine but drinks little. Outside his window he can see the Mongol fires, a ring of stars surrounding his city, closing tighter each night. In the bazaar, people light candles at their doors, praying for deliverance. Children cry in their sleep. The old men who remember prophecies mutter of a punishment foretold that one day riders from the east would come who carry the wind in their hands and the wrath of God in their hearts. On the fourth night, the Mongols' drums begin. The sound rolls across the plains like thunder. The earth itself seems to tremble. The Sultan steps out onto his balcony and looks toward the dark horizon. For the first time, he feels the weight of what he has done and what is coming. In that moment, the wind changes, carrying the smoke of Bukhara straight into Samarkand's sky. The city that once glittered like paradise now stands beneath a shadow as heavy as fate itself. The siege of Samarkand begins before dawn, a whisper first, then a roar. When the sun rises, its light glints off a forest of spears and helmets stretching beyond sight. The Mongols have encircled the jewel of Transoxiana, a city once so radiant that poets called it the mirror of heaven. Now that mirror reflects only smoke and dust. You stand atop the eastern wall, the chill wind carrying the smell of fear. The defenders, Persians, Turks, Arabs and mercenaries from as far as the Caucasus, line the battlements, their armour mismatched, their eyes hollow. Below them, Mongol engineers work in silence, constructing siege towers and catapults with terrifying precision. Within hours, they have surrounded the city with wooden walls of their own, a ring of death tightening with every hammer's strike. From the royal citadel, Sultan Muhammad II watches in disbelief. The speed, the organisation, the sheer scale of it. No army has ever moved like this. He had imagined chaos, barbarians screaming at the gates. Instead, he sees a machine. The Mongols move like craftsmen, every motion purposeful, every camp aligned to the compass. They are not men, he murmurs. They are a storm that thinks. The first stones fall before midday. Massive boulders, hurled by catapults, crash into the walls, sending showers of brick and dust into the streets below. The defenders fire back, their own mangonels groaning under strain, but their shots fall short. Archers loose volleys, arrows darkening the sky, but the Mongols answer in kind, their composite bows bending like serpents, their arrows finding every gap in armour. By noon, the city shakes with thunder. Smoke drifts across the rooftops. Women carry water to the wounded, children huddle in cellars, imams cry out for divine aid. "Hold fast!" the generals shout, though their voices quiver. Outside the gates, Genghis Khan rides calmly along the front lines, inspecting his forces. His cloak ripples in the wind, his eyes never still. Beside him rides Subutai, his chief strategist, pointing toward the city's weak points. "There," he says, gesturing to the southern gate. "The ground is soft, the wall thin." The Khan nods once. "Send the rams." A signal horn sounds, deep, low, unending. The Mongol battering rams advance under cover of siege towers. Arrows rain down from both sides, the air alive with shrieking fletchers. The defenders pour boiling oil, drop stones and hurl curses. The Mongols keep coming. Behind them, teams of Chinese engineers fire flaming projectiles that arc through the sky, landing within the city like falling suns. Fires break out in the eastern quarter. Panic spreads faster than flame. Refugees flood the streets, trampled by soldiers trying to reach the walls. The Sultan rides through the chaos, shouting for order. "Fight! For your families, for your faith." His horse rears amid the smoke, its nostrils wide, eyes rolling white. Around him, soldiers scatter. The Sultan's commanders are dead or gone. The mercenaries begin to whisper, "The gods have left this place." That night, the Mongols halt their bombardment, not out of mercy, but strategy. They light bonfires across the plains, creating the illusion of an army even larger than before. From the walls, it looks as if the entire world has come to destroy them. The defenders stay awake, waiting for an attack that never comes. By dawn, exhaustion weighs heavier than fear. At sunrise, the Mongols begin again. They push siege towers forward, covered in hides soaked in vinegar to resist fire. Behind them march slaves and prisoners forced to fill the city's moat with earth and corpses. The defenders fire arrows into the crowd, killing their own people, but the Mongols keep driving them forward. Slowly, inexorably, the moat disappears. On the third day, a section of the northern wall collapses. The Mongols surge forward, shouting war cries that echo like thunder. But the defenders rally, pushing them back with desperate fury. The bodies pile so high the Mongols use them as ladders. When night falls, neither side can count their dead. Inside the city, the Sultan calls his commanders to council. His face is grey, his voice hoarse. How long can we hold? A general bows his head. A week, perhaps 2. 2 days, mutters another, if God wills. The Sultan slams his fist onto the table. Then we fight until the last breath. But not everyone agrees. In the shadows, whispers spread of surrender, or worse. Among the city's defenders are Turkish mercenaries who once served the Mongols before joining the Sultan's service. They know what waits beyond the walls, and they begin to doubt. On the 5th day, a strange quiet falls. The bombardment stops. From the walls, scouts peer out. The Mongol line seems still, empty, abandoned. Some believe the enemy has retreated. Others sense a trap. By noon, the truth arrives. A storm of dust rises on the western plain. A second Mongol army, one the Sultan didn't even know existed, has appeared behind the city, cutting off its last route of escape. The trap is complete. That night, the Mongols light every torch, every fire, every lantern they have. The plains glow red like molten metal. The drums begin again, slow and steady. Boom, boom, boom. From the royal citadel, the Sultan watches in horror. The sound doesn't stop. It's not war now. It's inevitability. Down in the streets, men whisper prayers. Women clutch their children, and the air smells of ash and fear. The city's golden walls shimmer in the firelight. Beautiful, doomed. Outside the gates, Genghis Khan stands upon a ridge, his face lit by flame. Tomorrow, he says quietly to Subutai, the jewel will break. And as the night deepens, the drums beat on, counting down the final hours of Samarkand's glory. Dawn breaks red over Samarkand, the colour of blood and prophecy. Smoke hangs low over the city like a mourning veil. The walls groan with each new impact, and the air smells of sulphur, oil, and the burnt flesh of the fallen. You can taste the fear in it, metallic, bitter, and heavy as dust. For 6 days and nights, the defenders have fought without sleep. The Mongols have thrown wave after wave against the walls, and though thousands have died, the tide does not stop. Each assault feels like a heartbeat closer to the end. The Sultan's men are exhausted, hungry, terrified. Yet worse than all of that is what begins to whisper through the ranks: betrayal. The Sultan's army is a patchwork of nations: Persians, Arabs, Turks, and mercenaries from distant lands. They share no loyalty, only a paycheck and the faint hope of survival. The strongest among them are the Kipchak Turks, fierce horsemen who once fought for the Mongols before defecting to the Khwarazmian cause. They guard the city gates now, proud, restless, and suspicious. Inside the royal citadel, Sultan Muhammad II rages. His voice echoes through the marble halls, cracking with fury. Cowards! Traitors! They whisper surrender while I fight for their lives. His mother, Turkan Khatun, watches from her chair, eyes cold and sharp. Then by their loyalty, she says quietly. Gold can hold walls longer than courage. The Sultan glares at her. Gold is useless when the city burns. Outside, the soldiers begin to break. Whole units abandon their posts. Desertion spreads like rot. The Mongol bombardment never stops, a relentless pounding that feels less like war and more like punishment. And then, at noon, the unthinkable happens. At the western gate, the gate of the sun, the guards suddenly stop firing. A silence ripples along the wall. When the captain arrives, He finds the gate unmanned. The chains are loose. The heavy wooden doors creak open. The Kipchak mercenaries have vanished. Within minutes, Mongol scouts spot the gap. Horns blare across the plain. Genghis Khan himself rides forward, raising his arm. "Now," he says, and 10,000 horsemen charge. The gates burst open under their assault. The first Mongols flood into the outer quarter, cutting down the unprepared defenders. The streets erupt in chaos. Shouts, screams, fire. From the citadel, the Sultan sees the breach. "Hold the gate," he roars, but his voice is swallowed by the noise. He orders his bodyguards to ride with him, to rally the troops. Down the narrow alleys they gallop, swords flashing, banners streaming, but by the time they reach the western wall, the Mongols are already inside. It's no longer a battle, it's a collapse. The city's defenders splinter, some fight bravely, others throw down their weapons, and some even switch sides, turning their blades on former comrades. Smoke fills the air, thick as fog. From every direction the Mongols push inward, disciplined, merciless, unstoppable. In the bazaar, the last of the Sultan's cavalry makes a stand, forming a ring of shields around the fountain. They fight like trapped lions, slashing, roaring, dying. Arrows fall like rain. The fountain turns red. By nightfall, the outer city has fallen. Only the citadel remains, a final refuge for the Sultan, his court, and what's left of his army. The Mongols pause their assault just long enough to bring up siege engines, surrounding the fortress like wolves circling wounded prey. Inside, the Sultan sits upon his throne for what may be the last time. His armour is dented, his hands trembling. "How did they breach the gate?" he asks, voice barely a whisper. A surviving officer kneels. "The Kipchaks, Majesty. They fled in the night. Some say they made a deal with the Mongols." The Sultan closes his eyes. "Betrayal," he breathes. "Always betrayal." Turkan Khan stands beside him. "Then you must flee," she says. "The Empire needs its ruler, even if its capital falls." He looks at her in disbelief. "Flee?" "From my own throne." She steps closer. "Live, my son. So you can take vengeance outside. The Mongols begin their final bombardment. Stones crash against the citadel walls, shaking the ground. The Sultan looks around the hall, at the mosaics, the marble columns, the golden lamps. He built this palace to last 1,000 years, and it will not survive the night. At midnight, a small gate opens at the rear of the fortress. Under the cover of smoke and chaos, the Sultan mounts a fresh horse and slips away with a handful of guards. The city he swore to defend now burns behind him. Inside, the defenders fight on, unaware that their ruler has fled. By dawn, the citadel is surrounded. Mongol siege towers loom above its walls. Firebombs arc through the air, bursting in showers of flame. The survivors inside, soldiers, nobles, servants, huddle together in the grand hall waiting for the end. When the final gate splinters, the Mongols pour in. The screams echo through every chamber. The walls that once glowed with calligraphy now drip with soot and blood. By morning, the flag of the eternal blue sky flutters over the ruins of Samarkand. In the centre of the burning square, Genghis Khan sits astride his horse, surveying what was once the most beautiful city in the world. The smoke curls around him like incense, the fires reflected in his eyes. He turns to Subutai and says quietly, "They thought their walls could hold the wind." Subutai nods. The wind has answered. The Khan looks up toward the citadel's blackened dome, and for the first time in months he allows himself a small, grim smile. The jewel of Transoxiana has shattered. The empire that mocked him is crumbling, and somewhere far to the west the Sultan flees into the desert, chased by the very storm he summoned. The dawn after betrayal breaks pale and cold, a ghost of a sun rising over a city that no longer belongs to itself. Smoke clings to the air like a curse. The walls that once gleamed golden with sunrise now gape open, blackened and broken, their stones still trembling from the night's bombardment. Samarkand, the city poets called the crown of the world, stands dying. You walk through its streets, and the world feels muffled, smothered under the thick blanket of ash. The smell is unbearable. Burnt wood, burnt flesh, the sour stench of fear. The Mongols have entered fully now, and the storm that began at Otrar and Bukhara has reached its climax here. Their army moves with a precision that feels supernatural. Lines of horsemen sweep through every district, their curved sabres flashing in the grey light. Behind them come the foot soldiers, efficient and expressionless, cutting down any who resist. From the rooftops, smoke rises where fire arrows have struck. Fountains hiss with steam, their marble cracked and red. On the Registan, once the most beautiful square in all of Central Asia, the clash of steel echoes between the tiled facades of madrasas and mosques. The defenders fight desperately, but they are outnumbered, exhausted and leaderless. The Sultan, their king, their pride, has vanished into the desert. The few who still fight do so for their families, their homes, or the vain hope that mercy exists. Genghis Khan does not lead the slaughter himself. He rides through the chaos calmly, watching as his generals carry out his command. His eyes move across the city like a judge reading a sentence already decided. He does not shout, does not rage. His vengeance is silent, methodical, and absolute. In one quarter, the great libraries burn. Scrolls and books, centuries of knowledge, poetry and science, curl into black smoke that spirals up toward the pale sky. The scholars who once measured the stars and calculated the heavens now lie in heaps beside their instruments, their mouths full of ash. In another quarter, artisans are rounded up. Goldsmiths, masons, weavers and builders, all those whose skills can serve empire, are spared and marked for deportation to the Mongol heartland. Their families are herded with them, eyes wide, trembling. For them, exile will be survival. For everyone else, there is only death. The mosques fall one by one. The minarets crumble under catapult fire, toppling like trees. The muezzin's call is replaced by the cries of the dying. The sacred streets that once echoed with prayer now echo with the tramp of hooves and the crack of whips. You follow a column of prisoners being driven toward the main square. Men, women and children. Their faces grey with dust, their clothes torn. They move in silence, too afraid to weep. At the front rides a Mongol officer, his bow slung casually over his back, his face hidden by a mask of iron. Every few minutes he glances back to make sure the line doesn't falter. When one man stumbles, he's cut down without hesitation. The fountain at the square's centre overflows, not with water, but with blood. Corpses float like offerings. The Mongols have executed every soldier found still bearing arms. Their heads are stacked in neat pyramids, a grotesque monument to discipline. From his vantage on a hill beyond the city, Genghis Khan watches the smoke rise. The wind blows east, carrying the scent of victory back toward the steppes. His generals approach, their armour black with soot. Subutai dismounts and kneels. "It is done," he says. "Samarkand is ours." The Khan's gaze lingers on the horizon where the city walls once gleamed. "And the Sultan?" "Fled," Subutai replies. "He left the city before dawn." For a moment, Genghis is silent. Then he exhales. Not a sigh exactly, but something close to it. Let him run. The desert will finish what he began. He turns to the other commanders. "No mercy," he says, "but no waste. Take the builders, the artisans, the wise. Send them to Karakoram. Let their skills serve the eternal sky." The generals bow. The orders ripple outward. As the fires burn through the night, the Mongols strip the city of everything of value. Gold from the palaces, silver from the mosques, silks from the markets. They take the horses, the tools, the food and the people. The rest, the old, the weak, the proud, are left to the flames. The next morning, Genghis rides into the centre of the ruined square. The air is thick with smoke. He dismounts before the great mosque, its dome cracked, its gates hanging open. He steps inside, boots echoing on marble now littered with debris. For a long while he stands in silence, gazing at the shattered tiles and the broken calligraphy on the walls. Then he says quietly, "They thought themselves the heart of the world. Now their heart is ash." He kneels, scoops a handful of dust from the floor and lets it fall through his fingers. This is what comes of pride. Outside, the Mongols drive long iron stakes into the ground and hang captured banners. Trophies of victory. On the highest tower they raise the flag of the eternal blue sky, the falcon emblem catching the wind. Samarkand is finished. The jewel of the Silk Road lies black and silent, its gardens trampled, its domes cracked, its people gone. But even in ruin, the city gleams faintly, the heat of its flames shimmering like gold dust in the sunlight. Beauty refuses to die, even as empire does. That night, as the Mongol army makes camp beyond the walls, the fires of Samarkand burn behind them, turning the desert sky crimson. The Khan's tent stands at the centre of the plain, its banners snapping in the wind. He sits cross-legged in silence, listening to the hiss of the flames. His face is expressionless, but in his eyes flickers something almost human. Not joy, not sorrow, but the quiet satisfaction of balance restored. They murdered his envoys. They mocked his peace. And now, the world knows what it means to awaken the wrath of the steppes. When dawn comes, there will be no more Samarkand, only a smouldering wound on the Silk Road, and the Mongols will ride west again, tireless as the wind, unstoppable as time. He rides west into the desert with the world collapsing behind him. The night is cold, the stars sharp as daggers, and every hoofbeat sounds like accusation. The once mighty Sultan Muhammad II, Lord of Khwarazm, ruler of 1,000,000 souls, has become a fugitive. His silk robes are torn, his crown left behind, and the wind that once carried his banners now drives sand into his eyes. You follow him across the desolation, a tiny procession swallowed by an ocean of emptiness. His bodyguards are few, their armour dented, their faces hollow with exhaustion. The Sultan's horse limps, wounded. The empire he once commanded with a wave of his hand now lies behind him in ashes. Bukhara, Samarkand, Otrar, all gone, devoured by the storm he summoned with pride. He rides in silence for days, saying nothing, drinking little, sleeping less. At night, when the fire burns low, he stares into the darkness and whispers to no one, "Why did God forsake me?" But even now he does not understand. In the cities he had imagined himself God's shadow upon earth. Now in the wilderness he is only a shadow of himself, a man stripped of every illusion but fear. His retinue grows smaller each day. Some desert in the night, others fall behind and are never seen again. The horses die first, their carcasses left for vultures, then the men begin to die, from thirst, hunger or despair. By the time they reach the Oxus River, only a handful remain. The Sultan stands at the water's edge, staring at the vast current shimmering in the moonlight. Once this river had been his empire's lifeblood. Now it feels like a barrier between the living and the damned. He wades into the cold water, letting it rise to his knees, his waist, his chest. "It is over," he murmurs, "everything." But one of his guards, a loyal Turk named Aglam, grabs his arm. "No, Majesty. You must live. For vengeance. For the throne." The Sultan looks back toward the east, where the horizon still glows faintly red from the burning of Samarkand. He clenches his fists. "I will live," he says, "but not to rule. To curse." They cross the river by dawn and head into Khorasan, a province already in chaos. Refugees crowd the roads, soldiers scatter in panic. The Sultan rides through villages that once swore loyalty to him, but now the people hide in their homes, terrified of both Mongols and their fleeing king. Everywhere he hears the same words. "The Mongols are coming." In Merv he finds brief refuge in the citadel. The governor bows low, trembling. "My Sultan, rest here. The walls are strong." But Muhammad knows better. He has seen strong walls crumble. "There are no strong walls anymore," he says. "Not in this world." He stays only one night. The next morning the dust on the horizon tells him the Mongols are near again. He flees before the sun rises. The chase becomes legendary, one of the greatest pursuits in history. Genghis Khan sends his two most fearsome generals Subutai and Jebi to hunt him down. "Do not return until you have found him," the Khan commands. "Follow him to the ends of the earth if you must." They obey. The pursuit stretches thousands of miles, across deserts, mountains and rivers. The Mongol scouts seem to appear everywhere, cutting off roads, ambushing stragglers, burning every place that dares to harbour him. The Sultan's small party rides through the ruins of his own empire, haunted by smoke and silence. He reaches Nishapur, only to find it already in Mongol hands. He flees south toward Herat, but that too has fallen. Each time he stops, he hears the thunder of hooves behind him. Closer, closer, closer. By winter, he crosses into Persia, ragged and broken. The once proud ruler now hides in villages under false names, begging for food, trading jewels for water. The Mongol generals track him relentlessly, following every rumour, interrogating every shepherd, leaving behind corpses as messages. In one mountain pass, he hears their approach before he sees them. The echo of drums, the glitter of armour. He barely escapes through a hidden gorge, his last few guards dying to hold them off. The sound of their screams follows him long into the night. By the time he reaches the Caspian Sea, he is alone. His beard is grey, his hands blistered, his voice little more than a rasp. He hides in a fisherman's hut near the water, living on scraps. The world has forgotten him. His name is cursed even by his own people. But the Mongols do not forget. Subutai and Jebe follow his trail all the way to the sea. They find the villagers who sheltered him and torture them for answers. One fisherman confesses that the Sultan fled to an island offshore. The generals send boats to search. On the island, the Sultan feels the end approaching. His health is gone. Fever burns through him. He lies on a straw mat staring at the ceiling, hearing the gulls cry above. He whispers prayers, but no comfort comes. In his delirium, he sees visions, his palace in Samarkand, his mother's face, the burning of Otrar, the broken gates, the sound of Mongol drums. He tries to rise, but cannot. "I am the king," he murmurs, "the king of dust." When the Mongol boats land days later, they find only a corpse. Sultan Muhammad II, ruler of Khwarazm, the man who defied Genghis Khan, has died alone of sickness and despair, not by sword or fire, but by his own arrogance. Subutai orders his body searched. They find a single ring on his finger, gold engraved with the words "Eternal Empire." Whoa, the general stares at it for a moment, then throws it into the sea. He sends word to the Khan, the fugitive is dead. The curse is ended, but in the east, Genghis Khan simply nods. "No," he says softly, "the curse is only beginning." Because the fall of one man has become the fall of a world. The Empire of Khwarazm dies not with a single sword stroke, but in waves, each one heavier, darker, more merciless than the last. It is 1221 now, and the Mongol storm has moved west like an endless tide, devouring everything from the Oxus River to the gates of Persia. What began as vengeance for a handful of murdered merchants has become the annihilation of an entire civilization. You stand where once were the borders of a mighty realm, and now there is only silence. The roads are littered with bones. The canals that fed the great oases of Transoxiana run thick with ash and mud. Villages lie blackened, their wells choked with bodies. Birds no longer circle above. There is nothing left to scavenge. From Samarkand to Nishapur, from Herat to Merv, the Mongols move like a machine built of wind and death. Their banners flutter over cities older than memory. Behind them they leave a desert of smoke. After the death of Sultan Muhammad II, the empire falls apart completely. Governors, generals and princes once loyal to him now fight among themselves for scraps of power. His mother, Turkan Khatun, still commands a small army in the south, but her forces are shattered one by one. When the Mongols surround her, she is captured, veiled, proud and unbowed. She demands to see Genghis Khan himself. He grants her audience. In the Mongol camp, the old queen stands before the Khan, her jewels dulled by dust. "You destroy," she says bitterly. "But what will you build?" Genghis studies her for a long moment. "Order," he replies simply. "Out of arrogance, I build fear. Out of fear, peace." She spits at his feet. "There will be no peace where your shadow falls." The Khan nods once. "Perhaps." But there will be silence by dawn. She is gone, swallowed by history. Her sons are hunted one by one. The Sultan's heirs scatter. Jalal ad-Din, the bravest of them, raises a small army and fights fiercely in Afghanistan, even defeating a Mongol vanguard at Parwan. But his victory lasts only days. The Khan himself arrives, crossing mountains that no man should survive. Jalal ad-Din flees south, cornered on the banks of the Indus River. There, trapped between the Mongols and the torrent, he chooses the impossible. You watch him from the cliffs, his horse rearing, water roaring below, arrows hissing through the air. The Mongols close in, shouting for his surrender. Instead, he drives his horse off the cliff. For one breathless instant, both man and beast hang suspended in the mist, then crash into the river far below. When the water clears, he is gone. Genghis Khan watches in silence from above. Subutai turns to him. "Shall we pursue?" The Khan shakes his head. No, he has escaped to his fate. That is punishment enough, and with that, the last living son of Khwarazm vanishes beyond the river, carrying nothing but the memory of a world destroyed. From that day onward, the Mongols cease to speak of the Khwarazmian Empire in the present tense. It becomes a story, a warning, a name on a broken coin. Yet Genghis Khan is not finished. He divides his armies and sends them in every direction, north into Khorasan, south toward Persia, west toward the Caucasus and beyond. His generals follow his will like extensions of his hand, erasing cities as easily as words from a scroll. At Nishapur, the residents rebel and kill a Mongol prince, the Khan's son-in-law. The response is biblical. His widow demands vengeance so complete that the city's name will never be spoken without a shiver. The Mongols comply. For 7 days and nights they kill. The city's population, men, women, children, even the cats and dogs, is exterminated. When the work is done, they fill the streets with bones. At Merv, one of the greatest cities of Islam, the same fate unfolds. Its people open the gates in surrender, trusting the Khan's promise of mercy. The Mongols herd them into the plain outside the walls, more than 1 million souls some say, and execute them methodically, 10 by 10, row by row. The river nearby runs red for days. No one counts the dead anymore. The numbers lose meaning. The Khwarazmian Empire becomes a map of absence. Its fields go untended, its irrigation canals dry up, its trade routes vanish under drifting sand. The Silk Road itself grows quiet, haunted by stories of Mongol riders who appear from nowhere and vanish again with the wind. But amidst the horror, the seeds of a new order are already sprouting. Genghis Khan establishes governors, tax systems, and routes of communication across the conquered lands. He places loyal administrators in cities once ruled by tyrants, enforces laws that punish corruption, and protects merchants who now travel safely under Mongol banners. Where once there was chaos of pride, now there is a strange iron discipline. The merchants whisper that the roads are safer than ever, provided one carries the Khan's seal. And so trade begins to flow again, even through the ashes. Gold from Persia, silk from China, spices from India, all pass beneath the eye of the Mongol Empire. The irony is bitter. The empire that once controlled the Silk Road through fear and arrogance has been replaced by one that controls it through fear and order. The circle has closed. When Genghis Khan receives word that Khwarazm has ceased to exist, he says nothing for a long time. Then, at last, he speaks softly. The world is cleansed. He rides out into the steppe that night, alone, his horse kicking up sparks from the starlit sand. The wind howls around him, carrying the ghosts of 1,000 cities. He whispers to the sky, "I did not seek blood, only justice." But the steppe does not answer. The Mongol fires burn on, flickering across the ruins of an empire that had believed itself immortal. The smoke drifts upward, curling into the shape of forgotten prayers, and beneath that vast, indifferent sky, a truth is written in flame. No empire, however proud, can outlive its arrogance. Long after the hooves have faded and the drums have gone silent, Samarkand remains, or rather, what is left of it. The great city that once glittered like a turquoise crown in the desert now lies hushed beneath a layer of dust and ash. From afar it looks almost peaceful, as if sleeping. But when you walk its streets, the silence feels alive, haunted, listening, waiting. The domes still stand, cracked and blackened. The tiles that once dazzled travellers with gold and blue are dull now, their edges curled by fire. The Registan, once a place of laughter, trade and prayer, is nothing but an empty square filled with broken columns and charred timbers. Pigeons roost in the hollows of collapsed arches where once imams recited the Quran. The fountains are dry, the gardens are gone. Even the air feels hollow, as though sound itself has left the city. And yet, beneath the ruin, life endures. A few hundred survivors still wander the ruins. Women gathering water from cracked cisterns. Old men searching for scraps of wood to burn. Children playing silently among bones. They move like ghosts through their own home, speaking in whispers. When they pass the blackened mosques, they bow their heads. No one prays aloud anymore. Above them, the Mongol banners still flutter on the citadel. A small garrison remains to watch over what used to be the heart of the Khwarazmian world. They collect tribute from passing caravans and ensure that no rebellion rises again. To them, Samarkand is no longer a city. It is a cautionary monument, a ruin preserved by fear. Each day, riders arrive from the east bearing messages, orders and prisoners. The Mongol governors, pragmatic as ever, begin to rebuild what they destroyed. Not for beauty, but for control. They reopen the wells, repair the gates, and mark the roads with the symbols of the eternal blue sky. Slowly, the city becomes useful again. A military depot, a resting station, a cog in the machinery of empire. But it will never again be what it was. You walk into the great mosque, or what remains of it. The once perfect dome has collapsed inward, scattering blue mosaic like fallen stars. The marble floor is cracked, and through the cracks sprout wildflowers. The scent of ash still lingers, but so does the faint sweetness of new life. The survivors have turned the ruin into a refuge. In one corner, a few women sit weaving cloth. In another, a boy reads from a half-burned manuscript, his voice small and trembling. The Mongol commander overseeing the city, a stern man named Kitbuka, visits the mosque one evening. He watches the boy read and does not interrupt. When the boy finishes, he asks, "Whose words are those?" "Al-Farabi's," the boy replies softly. "On the harmony of the stars." Kitbuka nods. "Keep reading them." The Khan values knowledge, even the knowledge of those he conquers. He turns and leaves, his armour clinking in the twilight. It's a strange kind of mercy, this new world. Brutality and curiosity, destruction and preservation, all bound together in one iron logic. The Mongols destroy the city's soul, then collect its pieces like scholars assembling a map. From the ruins of Samarkand, hundreds of artisans, scholars and engineers are taken eastward, forced to journey across mountains and deserts to serve in Karakoram, the new capital of the Mongol world. They will help forge weapons, design palaces, copy texts and build bridges. In their exile, they carry pieces of Samarkand's brilliance with them. And so, paradoxically, the city's knowledge survives, scattered like its people. The art of its mosaic tiles reappears decades later in Beijing, adorning Mongol palaces. Its astronomical instruments find their way to Persia, inspiring new generations of scholars. Its weavers bring their craft to the steppes, dressing the conquerors in silks they once sold to kings. The name Samarkand, though reduced to ashes, becomes a whisper that will not die. In the Mongol camp, Genghis Khan receives reports of the reconstruction. He listens, unmoved. "Let the city live," he says finally, "but let it remember who gave it back its life." He rides away without looking back. For him, Samarkand has already served its purpose, a symbol of vengeance, now transformed into a warning. Years pass, the ashes blow away, the gardens begin to return cautiously, stubbornly. The survivors plant pomegranates where corpses once lay, build small clay houses between fallen walls, and teach their children to walk carefully among the ghosts. The city breathes again, faintly. Travellers still come, whispering of its former glory. This was once the heart of the world, they say, and someday it will be again. They are not wrong. Centuries later, long after Genghis Khan himself is dust, Timur the Lame, Tamerlane, will rebuild Samarkand into a new empire's capital, a city of marble and blue domes that outshines its legend. But for now, in the shadow of the Khan, it remains a scar. One night, under the pale moon, an old man, one of the few who remembers the city before, walks alone through the ruins. He stops before the broken arch of the Registan and whispers, "You burned, but you did not die." He kneels, presses his hand to the cold stone and feels a faint warmth, as if somewhere deep within Samarkand's heart still beats. The wind stirs the dust, carrying the scent of fire and flowers together, and high above, unseen, the stars shine down upon the ruin, cold, bright, eternal, watching as empire crumbles and civilization stubbornly begins again. The camp of Genghis Khan sprawls across the plain like a city made of leather and smoke. Beyond it, the ruins of Samarkand still smoulder faintly on the horizon, a dark reminder of victory and vengeance. Inside the Khan's great felt tent, the air is thick with the smell of horse sweat, burning juniper, and the metallic tang of victory. The flickering firelight dances across maps inked with ash, Persia, Khorasan, the steppes, the world itself, all marked with his hand. You are there as he sits in silence, his face carved from shadow. Around him, his generals kneel, Subutai, Jebe, Joshi, Chagatai, Ogedei, men who have seen entire nations break before them. None speak. They know this silence is not calm, it is judgment. At last the Khan lifts his eyes from the fire. "Tell me," he says softly, "how do men forget fear?" Subutai, always the tactician, answers carefully, "They build walls, my lord." "They think stone will save them," Genghis nods. "And how do we remind them?" "By breaking the walls," says Jebi. A faint smile touches the Khan's mouth. "Good. Then let it be written, in fire and blood, that arrogance is the father of ruin." He leans forward, his gaze fixed on the map. His hand moves across it, tracing rivers, mountains, borders, erasing boundaries as easily as a child wiping dust. "We have punished Khwarazm," he says. "Its ruler is dead, its people scattered. But the world beyond still believes it is safe. The sultans and kings will hear of this and tell themselves it cannot happen to them. They will forget." He looks up at his sons. "They must not forget." Joshi shifts uneasily. "Father, we have already destroyed much. The cities burned still. What remains to teach them?" The Khan's eyes glint like obsidian. Their memory. He stands and walks to the tent's entrance, throwing open the flap. The night outside is vast, stars cold and brilliant above, the plain shimmering with moonlight. He gestures toward the horizon. "The world must remember that mercy is a choice I have already given and taken away. If I stop, they will rise again. They will rebuild arrogance." The generals bow their heads. For a long time, the Khan stands watching the smoke curling from the distance, where Samarkand once shone. In the silence, the wind rustles the banners above him, black horsehair, whispering like ghosts. He speaks again, quieter now. "I did not begin as a destroyer. When I was a boy, I wanted only to unite my people. I offered peace to Khwarazm. I sent gifts, words of brotherhood. They answered with blood. Tell me then, who made me a monster?" No one dares answer. The fire crackles. Outside, a horse snorts softly, the sound oddly human in its weariness. At last, Subutai bows deeply. "The eternal blue sky made you what you are, my Khan. You are its will made flesh." Genghis watches the flames dance. "Perhaps," he murmurs, "but the sky asks a price." He turns back toward his generals, his face hardening again. "Send word to every corner of the realm. No tax shall fall on the merchant who carries my seal. No bandit shall touch his goods. The roads will be safe. Let the world trade under Mongol law." Chagatai frowns. "After all this destruction, you would build peace?" The Khan nods. "A peace born from fear is the only peace men understand. Let them call it Pax Mongolica when I am gone." He sits again, eyes distant, voice softer now. "We have shown the world that defiance brings ruin. Now we must show it that obedience brings order." Jebba bows. "And Samarkand, my lord? Shall we rebuild it?" Genghis's gaze lingers on the smoke drifting through the tent flap. "Let it rise slowly," he says. "A scar should heal, but it must never vanish. The next ruler who walks its streets should feel the ghost beneath his feet." He dismisses the council. One by one, the generals bow and leave, their armour clinking like wind chimes in the still air. When the last of them is gone, the Khan remains alone with the fire. He reaches into the flames and draws out a burning stick. The glow lights his face, carving deep lines into it, lines of age, fatigue, and thought. He looks at his hand, the calluses, the scars, the blood that will not wash away. "I have built a world," he whispers, "but not one I can live in." The fire hisses. Outside, the wind shifts, carrying faint echoes of distant prayer. Survivors in the ruins of Samarkand chanting to a god who's not answered. For a moment the Khan listens, head tilted. There is something almost wistful in his expression. "They pray for forgiveness," he murmurs. "Perhaps one day I will too." He sets down the burning stick, the flame dying in the sand. Then he steps out into the night. The moon is full, pale and vast. The grass ripples in silver waves. Somewhere far to the west, new cities wait. Persia, Baghdad, the lands of the Franks. The world lies open before him, endless and undefended. He raises his hand to the sky, and in the stillness, it almost seems as though the stars themselves bow. "The sky is eternal," he says softly, "and so am I." Behind him, the fires of Samarkand glow one last time, faint, red, fading. Ahead of him, the horizon opens like a promise. He mounts his horse, its breath steaming in the cold air, and rides forward. The man who destroyed an empire, and in doing so forged one greater. And in the wake of his hoofbeats, the earth itself seems to whisper judgment. All empires fall, but some leave scars that never fade. The wind over Central Asia moves softly now, carrying only the whisper of ghosts. The smoke has cleared, the fires have burned themselves to silence, and the bones of empires lie bleaching under the sun. The conquest is over, but the echo of Genghis Khan's vengeance lingers across deserts, mountains, and memory. The land that was once the Khwarazmian Empire is no longer a place. It is a wound carved into the earth itself. You stand on the road between Samarkand and Bukhara, a path that once shimmered with the wealth of the Silk Road. Once merchants passed here bearing silk, spices and songs in a dozen tongues. Now only the wind moves, rattling through empty caravanserais, stirring the ashes of burned towns. Every step feels heavy, as if the ground itself remembers. The world has changed forever. From the ruins, the Mongols build something new, something colder, harder, and in its own way, astonishing. They establish posts along the trade routes, guarded by banners of black horsehair. Messengers ride night and day, covering hundreds of miles without rest. Where once brigands lurked, now there is order. The Khan's decree carries farther than any emperor's ever had. He who disobeys the law dies. He who obeys rides in peace. And somehow, impossibly, it works. Caravans begin to return to the roads. The merchants whisper of a miracle. You can travel from the Yellow Sea to the Caspian, from Beijing to Baghdad, carrying gold without fear. Even the deserts bow to Mongol order. The Pax Mongolica, born in terror, becomes the fragile peace of the world, but peace has its price. In Samarkand, the survivors rebuild slowly, their hands trembling but determined. They stack new bricks atop the bones of the old, plant seeds where ashes still smoulder. The call to prayer returns, soft at first, then stronger, echoing through the hollow shells of domes. The sound drifts across the plains, merging with the wind, as if the earth itself is exhaling after years of holding its breath. In Bukhara, the libraries are gone, but the memory of books lingers. The few scholars who escaped the slaughter gather scraps of parchment from ruins, copying what they can remember by candlelight. Knowledge is the only city that cannot be burned, one of them says. In the east, at the court of Genghis Khan, those same scholars, now slaves, now servants, transcribe new laws, map conquered lands, and teach the Mongols the art of empire. From their ruin, something vast begins to take shape, the architecture of a world without borders. Genghis Khan has transformed from destroyer to architect. His empire stretches farther than Rome's ever did, and its roads carry not just soldiers but ideas. From China come paper, printing, and gunpowder. From the Middle East flow mathematics, astronomy, and medicine. From the steppes spreads discipline, the hard wisdom of survival. Yet beneath all that progress the ghosts remain. At night, when the wind passes over the plains, it still sounds like galloping. Faint, distant, endless. The shepherds say that the Mongols never truly left, that their spirits still ride under the stars, watching, reminding the world what happens when pride defies patience. And perhaps they are right. The Khwarazmian Empire, once brilliant and arrogant, is gone. Its cities are dust, its kings forgotten. But its fall has written a law into the heart of history, a law older than war, older than kings, that no civilization, no matter how golden, stands beyond the reach of consequence. You look east, where the horizon begins to glow with the first light of dawn. Somewhere beyond that light lies Mongolia, cold, vast, and eternal, the birthplace of the storm that changed the world. The sun rises over the ruins, gilding the broken domes of Samarkand. The tiles flash blue again, just for a moment, as if remembering what they once were. Birds return to the empty courtyards, singing cautiously in the silence. Life, stubborn and quiet, begins its slow reclamation. And somewhere in the wind, as if whispered by the ghosts of both conqueror and conquered alike, comes a truth as gentle as it is devastating. Empires burn, but humanity endures. The wind moves on, carrying ash and pollen together, carrying memory and hope in the same breath. The ruins fade into the golden haze of morning. And you, standing there, witness to both the end and the beginning, finally understand that history never truly ends. It only sleeps, waiting to wake again in another empire, another age, another dream of permanence that will one day crumble to dust. The steppe breathes, the earth settles, the story closes softly, like sand covering the last ember. The sky above remains the same as it ever was, vast, cold, and eternal, indifferent to both the glory of kings and the ashes of their cities. So now, as you close your eyes, picture that endless steppe beneath the stars. Quiet at last. The fire has gone out, the swords are sheathed, and the night hums with a peace the world has not known in centuries. The ghosts of Samarkand drift like dust in the moonlight, but they are gentle now, watching, not haunting. You imagine the sound of hooves fading into silence, the air still and cool, the sky above infinite. History exhales, the earth sleeps. Somewhere, far off, a caravan bell rings, a reminder that even after empires fall, life keeps moving forward, one careful step at a time. You can almost smell the desert wind drying clean, carrying the faint perfume of apricot blossoms blooming again among the ruins. And as that wind brushes your face, you feel something ancient settle inside you. Not sorrow, not fear, but a strange calm. The world ends and begins, over and over, and still the stars remain. So rest now, traveller. The fire is low, the story is told. Let the ashes drift and the wind whisper you to sleep. For tonight, the Empire sleeps too. Good night. Sweet dreams.